Thank you very much. There, I think there's a slider. Hello, everyone. My name is, this is not it. Oh, there's there. Okay. My name is Shaheen. Just show of hands, how many of you have been to Growth Colony before? Okay, just a couple of people. Well, there are a lot of new faces, so I'll just quickly maybe tell you a little bit about what Growth Colony is. So Growth Colony is a community of growth marketers and marketers in general, and we come together every month through the events that we have, and we talk about anything from tactical Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads and so on and so forth, all the way to more trends and high-level elements of marketing and what's happening in that space. So tonight, we're going to be talking about B2B trends. But before I jump into that, I want to also thank XI as one of the sponsors of Growth Colony. They've been an absolute pleasure to work with, and they've produced, give us the facility and allow us to use it. So, and the support that is ongoing. The other sponsor of the event is Xgrowth, a B2B growth marketing agency helping B2B businesses in Australia. And that is kind of it with our sponsors. We have a new sponsor, by the way, which I'll announce in the next event. But about tonight's event. So on the panel we got, and they're going to introduce themselves as well. So, but I'll probably do a poor job. I'll give it a go. We got Simon, the CMO of Coffee and Finance. Simon has a really rich background in cryptocurrency agencies. He's also blockchain. Sorry about that. Red zone. Yeah, don't go over there with crypto. But blockchain, worked with WePower, who raised $40 million in their ICO. Might get their numbers wrong, but amazing background. And we've got James, CMO of ZMed and Medical One, a really amazing both product and company with Medical One, really focusing and changing how medical practices really operate in Australia. And Liz, the marketing manager at FlowPower, a really innovative power supplier to businesses across Melbourne. So I did a poor intro, but just help me welcome the panel, and we'll kick it off from there. It would be really amazing if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe just quick 10 seconds. Again, I did a pretty bad job. Well, you could go a little bit beyond 10 seconds, Jen. But yeah, if you could, maybe Liz, you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm marketing manager at an electricity retailer called FlowPower. So we work with businesses who spend pretty much over $50,000 a year on electricity. So they are businesses like an RGA store, but all the way up to Yarra Valley Water, Pernod Ricard, a whole lot more as well. So I've got about 10 years in the energy industry, so that's mainly working in the B2B space. Done a tiny little bit of B2C, but wouldn't go back. And so that means that normally talking to customers that are enormous. And that means talking to businesses like solar developers who are spending millions and millions and millions of dollars, rather than the smaller B2B SME market.
Gotcha. James.
Yeah, so I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for the Medical One Group, and one business within that group is ZMed, who are providers of practice management software nationally. I am a little bit on both sides of the fence because with Medical One I also do a fair bit of B2C, so I get to see both sides of it. But so ZMed provides software, it's a tech company, provides software to small, very tiny little businesses, to large hospital chains, specialists, GPs, allied health, lots of different personalities, lots of different needs and wants and so on. So the pure variance of it makes it a really exciting space. And being involved in the medical industry and the technology there is really cool too.
Cool. Simon?
Good, thank you. Thanks to Shaheen and Growth Colony for the invite as well. So I have worked across tech publishing and B2B marketing for probably about 20 years now. at companies like Lonely Planet. SitePoint was a sort of large publishing gig that I did for a while. Aforementioned WePower, which we can talk about later on. And I've done a lot of work with mainly large techs, so companies like Atlassian and Microsoft and New Relic and a lot of other guys like that.
Amazing. All right. So for tonight, we're going to go through a series of topics. But before we start with the topics, I want to also let everyone know that if you have questions, this is the first time we're trying this, so let us know if it works or not. But if you log into slido.com and enter hashtag B2B trends, you don't need to log in, you don't need to do anything, but just with your phone, go on the browser, type in slido.com, hashtag B2B trends, enter that in there. You can post questions and they will come up here. And if you like a question that somebody else has posted, just like it. The most liked questions will go all the way to the top, and we get to cover those questions if you have from the speakers. And we'll cover those questions, here and there during the talk. So there are a couple of things that we want to talk about. Obviously, at the very beginning, B2B trends, and then we'll dive deeper into some of the specific trends that the panel see that they're coming. We'll talk about some of the trends, some of the things that the panel might not agree, and that there are trends and maybe they're more like a fad. We'll go through a series of other things like who are some of the people that are doing really good B2B and how can we make B2B a bit sexy in terms of attracting some of the new talent to B2B. A lot of the marketing talent goes toward B2C because that's what they're familiar with, but how can we make B2B a bit more attractive? So I'd love to start with yourself, Liz.
Want me to start?
Yeah, so I want to know, like, when it comes to B2B, right, what do you think has changed in the space of past 5 years?
So I think the rise of data and big data and technology is one of the shifts we're seeing. So we're finally getting some budgets that allow us to apply CRM systems that spread from the sales team into the marketing team. And that's exciting because then we can actually report, we can get insights and then make decisions based on that. There's also a bit of a shift happening in who owns the customer. And that could be a cultural shift in that we're moving away from the junket of the B2B relationship where you schmooze and you take people out because people aren't allowed to do that anymore, towards a true pragmatic relationship building process.
Gotcha. All right, data and customer ownership. I love that. We'll definitely come back to that. But what are your thoughts, Jen?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. On that side of the business, yeah, definitely. There's just more acceptance around data and how it's used and what you can do with very, very basic insights. For me, one of the things I'm seeing more and more is that barriers to entry are getting lower and lower and lower, and you're not trying to derive value immediately up front with a relationship, but you're trying to spread it over time. So a lot of subscription model type arrangements. So you can actually, rather than proving your ROI beforehand, you can actually put your money where your mouth is. So what that means though is that with a CLV, with customer lifetime value, the L becomes like a really, really big capital. You need to extend out that L as long as you possibly can, which means that your sales and marketing process and delivery of a message needs to be consistent, not just through pre-sales, through sales, through your upper funnel activities and so on, but through the lifetime of the client, because guaranteed there'll be 1,000 other competitors out there hunting around to do a better job than you are.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I know even in your space, you sometimes when you bring a customer in, you're looking at 5 years down the line. If they leave earlier than 5 years or so, you haven't got your money back.
I feel like it's a failure. Yeah, absolutely, and we'll move heaven and earth to get the client back if we do lose them, and we do, because everyone else that's sophisticated within our industry knows exactly the same thing. So we have clients that have been with the company for 15 years or so, and onwards, since we were operating on the ZX spectrum back in the day.
Gotcha. Simon, what are your thoughts?
So I'll be in violent agreement. I think one of the things that Liz was talking about as far as kind of the shared ownership of things like CRM and kind of marketing automation platforms has become a lot easier as you look at things like platforms like ActiveCampaign and that sort of thing, where they've actually understood this and started to build in CRM and all this sort of stuff into the platforms, so that you're not needing to go through those kind of big integrations that you used to have to go through to kind of get 3 or 4 different platforms working together inside a tech stack. See, I used it, sorry. We knew we were going to use tech stack at some point tonight. The other big thing for me though is I think the ecosystem that supports really good storytelling has not only grown a lot, but it's matured a lot. And so all the infrastructure that you need for kind of really good video and all this kind of rich media stuff is there now. So with AWS and cloud hosting and all those kind of things, costs have come down really massively. Cost to create really good rich content's come down really massively over the last sort of 5 years. So you're kind of in a situation now where you can tell a really good story with kind of rich media. It doesn't have to cost you anywhere near as much as it would have cost even sort of 2 or 3 years ago. So you see a lot more of this really nice high quality video now out in the market, and people telling really interesting stories.
I like that. Yeah, video is something massive, and I know you're using video in some of the cycles, some of the elements of your funnel.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on video?
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly right. Looking at 5 years ago versus now, 5 years ago, you're trying to host a rich, well-produced video. You've got a 320 pixel video somewhere on YouTube that nobody can watch anywhere they want because they don't have enough data or they don't have the broadband speed or whatever it might be. So you're resorting to old, much more traditional white paper type content and so on. So one of the things that I specifically do with major campaigns for product releases is that I make sure I'm creating really strong pillar content with video. So that is long form, well produced video that from that pings off all the different other bits of collateral, I suppose, that are going to be suitable for particular channels, from anything from EDMs through to responsive ads, remarketing, to your website landing pages and so on. But you've got all these different things that maintains a consistent message, and it all sort of links back to that one sort of place. And it kind of helps just in terms of constructing and designing a campaign, keep yourself sort of centered and sticking to the fundamentals of the campaign, as opposed to going, I'm going to go off left field over here and go off left field over there. It's not to say though that you shouldn't be customizing content very specifically for the channel that you're on. That's still a fundamental truth, but you can come from that very same root originally.
Gotcha.
I think there's a really important point in that. One of the things in a marketing campaign is getting agreement on a core message and keeping a sales team on track. And so having that center pillar of content that everyone agrees on and is what you're running off means that it makes your life so much easier to actually refocus and go, okay, hang on a sec, we agreed to this, we did this, this is what we go back to.
And it's actually, that's one of the reasons why it's worthwhile putting more effort into creating the better, like making better content as your pillar. Spend the money there. You don't need to spend as much money now on distribution because there are so many channels available to you. And you can, if you're wowing your internal team, if you're getting alignment and shared agreement on that, then you can sort of feel that you're going to get the same thing from out in the market. There's going to be a little spark there, and everyone's going to potentially get on board.
Right.
Yeah. I think on the other side of that, you've got a lot more in the way of kind of video analytics now than you used to as well. So I think that ability to kind of be agile and change direction quite quickly now is much fuller than it used to be. So if you look at platforms like YouTube and Facebook and that sort of thing, the video analytics that you can get now out of those platforms, compared to even a couple of years ago, it's much fuller now. You get much more of a view of kind of what the audiences are looking at, how long people are looking at the video for, all those kind of things. So it gives you the ability to kind of be really agile with kind of what you're doing with that kind of rich media.
That's so true. And have you, maybe any of you, have you been able to incorporate video in different parts of the funnel in any way? You see in the US this rise of B2B video platforms like Vidyard, or Wistia is getting more clever, where you can incorporate CTAs in your video and they finish it, or you can have elements where on the top you're having a chat, and then the top that pops up a icon where you can download a white paper right there. And going even further up down the funnel, where salespeople are starting to use video at a much more personalized level. Do you have any experiences having video incorporated in your funnel so intricately, or is that, or you see that happening?
Well, to an extent, yeah. So I mean, CTA is one thing. I went through a little phase a little while ago where I just put CTAs anywhere you could blink because I thought that was going to be a great way of generating click-through, which was subsequently incorrect. My multivariate testing on myself proved that completely wrong. I think right video at the right time and the specific type of content is very important though, especially if you've got a very complex and technical product that can go off in a lot of different directions. If you're recognizing the type of customer that you've got coming into and you're seeing the behaviors from them that make whatever you're doing a tweak that goes, this is a specialist, this is an ophthalmologist, these are the things that they're interested in. If you can find a way of serving them the relevant content after they've seen potentially your pillar content at the upper end of the funnel, well, it stands to reason, it's fairly logical that you're putting logical, relevant content in front of them, they're more likely to respond favourably to it.
Gotcha. And that, yeah?
It's very cheap in the grand scheme of it. It's a lot cheaper than a salesperson. And you can control it.
Yeah.
So,
oh, wow.
tell what I want. So it's, we use it, or we're about to start using it, to back up the sales process. So a salesperson's gone through a proposal, they've skimmed over some detail because they weren't able to get engagement on certain topics. We have a very complicated product. And so then we're going to use video to give our internal stakeholder or champion within the organisation materials to reflect back on so they actually understand it and they're actually cross-selling internally properly.
Gotcha. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Is there anything?
Well, I can talk to you a little bit about finance and coffee because we've done quite a lot with video there. So Ashim was talking about finance and coffee earlier. So it's about 6,600 now.
Coffee and finance, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all right. I'll let you get away with it. You know, it's ultimate. But there's about 6,600 advisors on the platform, which makes us the biggest small business community in Australia, I think, on Facebook, something similar. And one of the sort of insights that we had very early on was that these guys they're generally 1 or 2 person operators, apart from the kind of really big end. There's a big gap between these kind of 1 or 2 person and the kind of yellow brick roads, which generally have sort of 300 or 400 people in them. So a lot of these guys are looking for software, they're looking for partnerships, they're looking for education, all that sort of stuff. So we ended up we're up to sort of the 5th kind of fairly regular video series now. So we do 2 weekly ones, it's a Tech Tuesday and then this Friday wrap that we do. But we do industry insights and a bunch of other stuff as well. Most of that has a lead generation component to it, and generally we're doing them interview style and interviewing whether it's a finance institution or a tech company or whatever it is. So if you don't understand CRM, we'll do 3 or 4 interviews with different CRM organisations, and then there'll be a lead generation component to that. So we're actually charging for the interviews and all that sort of stuff now. But that's built around the idea that it actually provides educational content to the audience, gives them some really nice, rich kind of educational material that they didn't know before, and then there's a lead generation piece to that as well. So that kind of campaigning around video, I think, is pretty important to the platform now.
Very interesting. Now, I want to come back to, so obviously video is a massive topic and a lot is happening in that space, but I want to come back to, you mentioned pillar contents, and then you talked about, Liz, how it helps to hold the team to that core focus, right? And this has been a massive discussion in B2B, which is sales and marketing alignment and keeping them aligned with what is the message and how are we treating the customer and how we're interacting with them. I'd love to hear from your side, because you're on the marketing side and dealing with sales, and then I want to hear from your side because James, you manage both teams. So what are your thoughts on sales and marketing alignment? And
so there's been times in my role that I've had sales reporting to me. We've just grown that sales team significantly, and I can't do both. So I think it's pivotal. I think basically your marketing campaign will fail in B2B if you can't get sales and marketing to align. And that's because they are hearing the customer voice every day. And if you don't have a good relationship with them, you can't move agilely to update your campaign. But at the same time, I feel like marketing have the ability to motivate a sales team with a campaign because they can sell to the sales team that it's possible to sell it. So you can actually go out with this sexy, amazing, wow campaign and they can be proud to knock on 1 million doors and get told to go away because they're selling something that matters. So you're almost doing the internal comms push as well.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts, Jen? Because sales and marketing, right? Marketing generates those leads, and I agree. Marketing generates those leads, and sales is like the leads are not qualified, and then marketing is like, well, you're not calling them, fast enough.
You're not doing the right thing. Like
yes.
we told you to say this, you didn't say this. Why didn't you say this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
That's a very even 10 years ago sort of attitude, that sales versus marketing thing, and very different types of personalities, especially in B2B. I don't think you can succeed. The more complicated product you are trying to sell, the more closely you need to be aligned, because you will be, as a marketer, sitting in a funnel potentially over here, and then you might get involved also here. But there's this big pipeline here, this suspect, prospect, sale component here that, with everything, I think you need that expert human touch that can really. So as a marketer, you can look through 1 million bits of data and figure out a customer persona or whatever it might be, and you can do that with amazing systems, whatever. But you put that persona in front of a very smart salesperson, that actual human being, and they're going to figure out a lot more about that human within 5 seconds, and they're going to understand, well, how do I want to sell to you now? How do I want to get you through the pipeline?
And have you put anything in place that facilitates that collaboration, or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I look at it from a very end-to-end perspective. I get the sales team involved from the very front end of the product roadmap all the way through, because they are listening to our current customers as well. They do a lot of retention work. So they hear what our client base is saying out in the market, and they bring it back better than potentially better than our head of product, who is focused on this sprint, this release date, this whatever over here. So I make sure that they take ownership of the direction the product's progressing, and I make sure that everything that we create and that we put out to market sort of has a component of what they're seeing within the market built into that, because otherwise it's flying blind.
Gotcha. Now I want to come to regarding data and talk about that, but before I do, with so many forms of communication, what's the panel's opinion on the best way to approach a cold prospect, and why? Anybody has an opinion on that one?
I'll jump in there for a second. For me, and it relates a little bit to what we were talking about a second ago, as far as sales and marketing, particularly in B2B, in a lot of cases, I think people start with the idea that you're selling to an organisation. You're not. You're actually, in the end, you're selling most of the time to an individual or a buyer's group. So we're talking about a cold prospect. In a lot of cases, and this comes a little bit to what you were talking about data, it's actually understanding who those people are and what buttons you need to press to a certain extent to take them from being a cold prospect beyond. So for me, the most important thing, and we used to do this, we had sort of large volume sales, or not large volume, but large ticket price sales at Lonely Planet. And in a lot of cases, what we used to do there was actually get down to the point where we actually went through the whole client team and looked at who they were and what they'd done in the past, and got an understanding of what their interests were and all those kind of things. Just from the point of view of, once we actually spoke to them, we already had enough data in the background on who they were and what they were interested in to kind of push the right buttons when we got there. And I think that kind of thing becomes really, really important when you're trying to take someone from a cold prospect beyond. And I think trying to speak to an organisation doesn't get you there in most cases, because you're not talking about an organisation, you're talking about 2 or 3 people that are going to make the decision.
Gotcha. And personalization is big. I mean, I definitely want to talk about that. I mean, just today, we were on Basecamp's. Anybody knows Basecamp, the project management tool? Yep. I was on Basecamp's website, and I saw a different homepage than my colleague who was sitting right next to me, and then I opened the website on incognito, and I had a different landing page, a different website. So personalization is so key. But I'd love to hear more about what data is doing. I mean, we're seeing the rise of intent-based marketing, personalization, and AI's impact in B2B. What are your thoughts on that front? And
I think it's often very risky in terms of how far in front of a potential customer you decide or define who or what they are. If you get it wrong, you have such a limited time now in front of a potential customer. If you're trying to be a bit too clever, then you risk ballsing the whole thing up completely. And there's a lot that you can do in that first interaction with the customer, wherever they may be coming from, whether it's from paid search or whatever landing pages they land or whatever it can be, that can really drive a successful sale. I think fundamentally, rather than getting personal too quickly, make sure the front end content is absolutely spot on from a very wide lens. Understand as much as you can from that, and then start personalising.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you need to ask some questions.
Yeah.
Look, many years ago I worked for an accounting firm, a big one, consulting firm. They sent birthday cards to every single one of those customers. So their partners would sit there and sign birthday cards on the 1st of every month, and it was the mail house job to mail them out. That was them leveraging data and their CRM to get a customer experience and create a conversation. Data doesn't have to be Netflix putting different images on every page or base claim. It can be just as simple as something that will make the person think.
Yeah, absolutely. And behavioural-based personalisation is kind of that thing, isn't it? You ask questions with the things you put up in front of people and see how they interact with it fundamentally, right? You have a landing page with, very easily, this is your product, these are the subheadings under it, this is your product for specialists, for allied health, for general practitioners. All of a sudden you've created something that's much more personal for an individual, and you're getting down that funnel.
Yeah. I think I always enjoy the how much I can mess people's personalisation up by the fact that I use a VPN full time. So,
Ad blocker.
so you do. I agree. You've got to be really careful with what you do there, because you can get a pretty messed up experience pretty fast if you try hard.
Gotcha. And the other thing with that is, how do you know that you've got your personalisation right? What's the feedback mechanism? Okay, so multivariate testing, great. That's cool. That's one. What's your sample size? Is that right? Do you have a market that's big enough to be able to satisfy a really good sample set? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I've always been a much bigger fan of, if you're going to do content creation, whether it's white paper downloads or video or whatever it is, something that actually looks to gather the right people in the right way through giving away value. So whether it's giving away, a white paper or whatever it is, that I've always felt has been much more successful than personalisation in a lot of cases, just because of the fact that if I'm niching a piece of content down to a pretty specific audience, and then I'm getting even if it's a very small number of leads, I know those leads have been niched down to the point that they're going to be warm, they're going to be the right people, all that sort of stuff. Versus personalising the whole site and then grabbing a whole lot of people in the wrong way and potentially having a poor experience.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's take another question. What do most people get wrong about B2B marketing? Oh, this is a good one. Liz, you want to go?
That it's boring? Because it's not. I think we've had this conversation, and I think you alluded to it before. I think a lot of graduates come out and they want to go sell makeup, or they want to go do something really fun and exciting, or what they see as fun and exciting. Go work for Coles or Woolies or whatever it is. The reality is B2B is so much more strategic, and you go down totally different pathways, and you actually as a marketer get to have a relationship with the customer. I have a relationship with the comms managers of all of our top customers. I call them and they call me. And so you get to be part of your business's success in such a more exciting way than just seeing a product on a shelf.
Yeah, and on that, you're potentially not going to enjoy being a B2B marketer if you're coming into a graduate position, or if it's in your first few years as a marketer, because you're probably not going to be able to do, you might get exposed to some really good thinking, but you're not going to be able to do the things that are really, really fun, and you're not going to be able to define those journeys and create that amazing content.
I'll argue that. Come work in my tent.
Oh, yeah, fine. But I think, around it being boring, there's a certain persona I think that really warms to the B2B marketing mindset. And it's often, I find, a lot of people that come from a very digital background, potentially, who like that analytics-based journey creation and the tech side of things, which is also a lot of fun. Yeah.
And do you think like those people succeed, you mean, or they have a hard time?
I think they're more. No, I don't think they have a hard time at all. I think they're more likely to be interested in the B2B marketing stream.
Gotcha. Any thoughts on that, Simon?
Yeah, look, I've always thought it was a really interesting space because of the fact that I don't think there's a lot of other places where you can get in a room with another business almost every day and be sitting there and saying, well, what problem are you trying to solve? Who are you audience? All this kind of stuff. And really working through a problem with someone else and then working out how you can help them solve that with your product. And I think, speaking to a little bit of what Liz was saying, having those personal relationships with all these people, like, again, at SitePoint, it was sort of all of the, these kind of marketing teams for particular products at Atlassian and all these kind of things, and trying to, work out how to get their products in front of the right developer markets and all that sort of stuff. And you sort of sit there and you won't get that kind of thing a lot of the time in B2C. Yeah. So it's kind of big, hoary problems,
I think that element that you need that not necessarily human touch, but it's a lot more complex, and especially a marketer that comes from, I hear that quite a lot. A marketer that comes from B2C says, "Oh, we're selling to humans," which is very true. But then the marketing strategy changes when you're trying to sell to B2C.
You're still always selling to humans.
Yeah.
That's very correct. But the challenge sometimes is the B2C guys were like, "Oh, we'll run a couple of Facebook ads and we'll be all right." Then you're like, "Nah, that's not that. You won't be able to sell a $20,000 package on a Facebook ad." Okay.
I don't know if we answered the question correctly.
What they get wrong about B2B?
B2B being
Passionate.
Yeah, we got passionate about B2B not being boring. So we didn't answer the question around what people get wrong, which is actually it's permanent. Okay, so getting caught up in the tech and forgetting about the fundamentals of telling a story from end to end. That's relevant to people. Always, there's always going to be a new tech thing here, and it's going to make this easy here. Great, thanks very much. But you still got to come back to that fundamental. You're still telling a story, and you're still identifying a need and satisfying that need. That's the thing.
Do you think that is that they forget about the opportunity of the customer? So that the customer can actually help you define your business strategy and keep moving forward, and they kind of reflect back on that granular aspect that you would have in a B2C model. So we were talking about.
Yeah.
So sitting in a room and saying, okay, what are your problems, and then coming up with a product that meets that need is fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then rolling it out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. There's another question. What are the recommended platforms for B2B or B2C? I'm not a platforms. That's a bit of a general question. Recommended platforms for the person maybe who asked that question. Maybe you could shed some light. Platforms in terms of is it acquisition? Is it nurturing? Was there anything particular? Or if somebody wants to add to that question, feel free to raise your hand. Maybe not.
I'll just add to it.
Yeah.
What would be like your tech stack? I guess that's the way I read it.
Okay.
Whatever's most appropriate to your budget and your product and your audience. Well, I've used a lot in the past. Like when I've had a lot of money, I've used things like Intentbased and all these kind of things, and been able to kind of get really good understanding of exactly what organisations were hitting the website and all this sort of stuff, Hotjar and all that sort of stuff. When I haven't had a lot of money, it's been like Active Campaign and Pipedrive or something, and I think you can find the appropriate tools, and in a lot of cases I don't think it's a good idea to go too over the top with your tools, particularly if you don't know how to use them properly, because there are a hell of a lot of organisations that sit on massive expensive tech stacks and have no value created out of them. And we go back to the data. If you don't understand your data and your audience, then don't buy anything expensive, because you'll get very little out of it.
What are your thoughts on tech stack?
I've got Sugar CRM sitting in the middle of everything, and we ping off a lot of our activities based around that, but I find myself using and then we spend a hell of a lot of money on sugar, and we don't necessarily use it as much as we should. I find that it's very needs-based again, and there's a lot. We're in a world where the technology that's available will suit our need at that time, and I find myself getting more use out of going, right, my objective right now is that I want to better understand my customers' user journey through the website. I'm now going to set up some Hotjar recordings. I'm going to record what people are doing on the website, set up a poll, whatever it's going to be, and that's next to free. That's next to nothing to pay for that. I want to set up an EDM campaign based on this, and this, and I want to do a little bit of this. I'm going to use MailChimp, which for a given value is going to be free. It's very needs based at the time. I think there are some really, really solid big products out there but for them to work really well, you need a quite large team both to implement and run and manage and so on and so forth. And a lot of the businesses that I work with now and have worked with previously don't have the resources to support them. So you think more short-term directly about your specific need, and these days almost guarantee there's going to be something out there that's suited for you.
Liz, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we use Microsoft Dynamics and Click Dimensions, which is a behemoth. Again, I don't think we've used the whole thing. And so we find when I first turned up, they were using MailChimp and they were getting banned because they were mailing the entire list.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Yep, so that's why you employ marketing. So from our perspective, we very much have a leadership team who want everything integrated. They want it absolutely integrated. We have an in-house CRM, a full-time employee, whose role it is to make it all work for us. So, which is lovely. But I can tell you right now, we still spend hours manually going through and sectioning things out because we don't know how to ask the right questions of the system to make it work in the way we actually want it to work.
But it's funny how I think we put a lot of, when you look at it, tool stack is a really, really sexy topic. But in a lot of situations, you still can go along with a very basic tool stack very far until you need to really go to that full integration and have all the bells and whistles that are out there.
I run like events off MailChimp and just use their form fills for RSVPs, didn't even link it into Eventbrite, and it costs next to nothing. You can segment your list, you can do everything, you can set automations off it. You don't even need a CRM.
Yeah, it's a very 5 years ago thing again. And once you have a big behemoth type program, it almost sets you on a course and removes a lot of your flexibility. So, I don't recommend it these days.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's talk about LinkedIn. What are your thoughts on LinkedIn? How are you using LinkedIn? Are you using LinkedIn at all? Has it changed anything? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Personally, yes. LinkedIn, like anything else, is a channel, and it will have a certain amount of use. I find it limited, to be honest, personally, and that just
for
might
your
be,
demographic specifically as well.
That's for my demographic. If I was in a different business, if I was doing thought leadership and so on like you're doing, LinkedIn would be basically my number one choice of platform. So it's again, what suits your needs. Identify that and make sure you're exploiting it as much as you can.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm very careful with it because of the fact there's so many people using it the wrong way now. Which makes it not only difficult to do it properly, but you want to be very, very careful with what you're doing, because I think you can hurt your brand pretty easily on LinkedIn now. I think everyone's going to know that, I get something like 10 or 12 a week connections from people that are purely trying to sell a product. That's the only reason they're trying to connect. And it's so obvious most of the time that I'm not going to connect with them anymore. Like 2 years ago, maybe I would have, but now I'm just like, whatever, no. So they're not even getting in the door now.
Gotcha. Liz, what about yourself?
I think it's an interesting platform to build personal brands. So if you've got an MD or a sales rep that's specialising in a certain space, then supporting them and helping them build their persona in that vertical, and then using targeted LinkedIn advertising to very, very specific audiences, not email, you can help your pipeline progress. So we do a lot of thought leadership for our MD and director, and do a lot of support around that. We also share our announcements and those kinds of things, and a lot of kind of co-marketing. So we celebrate the successes of our customers, which they love. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think those kind of things, particularly that sort of brand building and thought leadership stuff, is the right thing to be doing there now. Yeah.
Gotcha. And I also know that one of the areas that you're focusing on is account-based marketing.
we use it for lead gen.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the energy procurement process traditionally has been signed off by a procurement team. Very basic assessment. Our model is very different and requires a little bit more thought that can have significant savings. So we're talking 10, 15, 20, up to 60% savings. However, for us to progress that conversation beyond the traditional procurement process, we need to know the other people in the business. So we are using it for lead generation and to support that process. And so by us helping the sales team and the account managers build their persona on LinkedIn, when they approach those people, they are actually able to add some value to that conversation and look respectable rather than, as you're referring to,
Salesy.
Yeah.
Got the acceptance.
Absolutely.
And hey, we're selling this mortgage deal that you benefit. But how many people have heard of account-based marketing before? A couple people. Maybe can you explain a little bit what account-based marketing is?
It's basically leveraging the perspective that there's more than one decision maker in every sales journey. So I think the Gartner research says 5.7.
Something
around that. People in every decision maker. So the idea is that your marketing should actually target more than your decision maker, so that as you go through your pipeline, you don't end up with blockers. Because normally through a sales journey, your salesperson will be like, yes, I've got this. And at the last minute, the rug's pulled out by the CFO or just someone that didn't understand something. So account-based marketing is about supporting that business to go on the journey to make a different decision.
Gotcha.
It's also more personalised.
Yeah, and I think, just taking a little bit back to that sales and marketing kind of journey that we were talking about earlier with the teams, really good account-based marketing in a lot of cases is actually going first to the sales team and understanding the sales process. So who are you talking to? What are the steps you have to go through? What are the steps on the client side that they have to go to get a sign-off, all that sort of stuff. And then to a certain extent, the account-based marketing, the actual plan gets built on that sales journey. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's awesome. We are having a talk next month on account-based marketing if you're interested. We haven't announced it yet, but keep an eye out. All right, so in a world awash with big data, what is the role of qualitative research in B2B marketing? That's a good one. Who wants to?
Have an event with 10 of your clients and then have a data scientist go through 100,000 lines of code and then come back and tell me from which event did you get the most insight from. And I guarantee it'll be from the event that cost you $500 to put on versus the data scientist who costs you, on a contract, $50,000 for a month.
Liz, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, yes. So B2B, often you don't have that much data. So if you're in the upper echelons, you can't get a statistically significant data set. It's just not possible. I worked for businesses that had 10 customers. So the qualitative research becomes really pivotal, and it's also talking to your point of the fact they're humans. So you can actually get that honest opinion through that type of research as well.
Yeah, and I think, the qualitative piece, you just get such better data out of just sitting down with a small group of people and asking them the right questions. Yeah. Has to be the right questions in a lot of cases. I think it's worth, if you are going to run that kind of thing, sitting down beforehand and really thinking about what it is that you're trying to find out. But those kind of events can be really, really good.
We used it during our rebrand. So we actually did qual surveys with a series of different prospective customers, not people in our pipeline, but paid participants, and tested different brands and different messages.
Gotcha.
And used that to drive what we did for our rebrand.
Right. Love it. Love it. Okay. I want to talk about trends, right? What are some of the things that you've seen come around that you look at and you're like, this is not necessarily, I don't consider this as a trend, or I've put investment into this, I've tried it out, and it has not produced what it was supposed to or was promised to produce. What are your thoughts? I mean, James, maybe.
And one thing that I don't want to pursue any more than I have is around AI chatbots. I think it's that same question around quality versus quantitative usage of data. A chatbot, I don't think, can pivot as well based on a user to properly address their questions and their needs and identify what or who they are and what they need.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Simon, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, to that one, it very much depends on the customer journey that you're talking about, but I do think over the last couple of years, if you look at that particular trend, I think everyone went to chatbots, and then you saw everyone go back to kind of human customer support, just in a chatbot window that kind of looks like a chatbot. I think that's because of the fact that you can't write machine learning or AI at the moment that can pivot fast enough or has enough learning behind it to really do a good job of that kind of nuanced conversation. You will be able to eventually, but now it's a trend. It's a fad rather than a trend, if you like.
What we did get out of that though is we understood that there was another way that people wanted to communicate with us.
Yeah.
Where we're increasingly less voice based and we can communicate in a way that keeps things at arm's length. A on-site chat is fantastic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think the learning out of that whole chatbot thing that people went through over the last couple of years was that people don't want to wait. That on-site experience where you are getting an answer to your question straight away, whether it's via a chatbot or via an agent, that fulfills on that need of that kind of quick turnaround service that people weren't getting via email and other channels that you had in the past. Yeah. Interesting.
Liz, anything that comes to mind for you?
Any trend that got rid of traditional direct marketing, so snail mail.
Oh, okay.
I love snail mail. Spend a lot of money on postage. It kind of goes back to that account marketing point, and the data point, and all of those things, and the human point is that people don't get that much mail anymore, but they do get lots of email. So if you send someone something, and we all love online shopping, so if you send someone a package, all of a sudden you've got some cut through and you've got something really exciting. So there's a big push to only do things that are trackable as well, and it's not as easy to track. It's harder. Your CRM has to be retrofitted to do it, but it's something that needs to come back.
I love that. In the US, there is a company, if I'm not mistaken, they're called PFA, and they integrate with your CRM, right? And you can pick what kind of either swag or gifts that you want to send to potential customers, and then it tracks. You say, these customers who've completed this part of the journey, and when they hit this part of the journey, I want a direct mail to be gone to them. Let me know when it's get delivered. So there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing.
I would have that today. Yeah.
It's really cool. But yeah, direct mail, that's really cool stuff, and it's definitely coming back. You're right. Okay, what is the biggest mistake you've made as a B2B marketer? Who wants to go first?
Which mistake to talk about?
Yeah.
Should we just move on?
No, I think anywhere where I've made an assumption without putting the time into immersing myself in the environment and understanding the user and thinking that I can absolutely transition 100% my knowledge and understanding about a customer from a previous role, industry, whatever it is, to the new one.
Yeah.
The Venn diagrams are very, very different. And it just goes to show that you constantly need to be evolving your thinking about how you approach your clients or your customers or whoever they might be. Yeah.
I also think not understanding your competitive landscape, I think it can be pretty, probably all marketing, I think it can be very easy to get stuck in one tunnel and forget that you're, to your point, you've got competitors but they're not your natural competitors, they're kind of equivalent competitors that are coming at it the whole way through.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the last piece, what we were talking about a moment ago, just as far as kind of how you get your qualitative understanding, I think getting too passionate about a product that doesn't fulfill on what your customers really need. Definitely, I've made that one a few times before. Yeah.
That's very. We had one of the marketing managers from Sidekicker here, and she was talking about. Jess was talking about how, with her background, she came in. She was like, "Oh, you know, it's going to be awesome. We're going to have lead magnets going out to our customer segments. We're going to be collecting all this lead." And just like you said, made an assumption based on the previous demographic and customer segment, came into a new customer segment, and it absolutely flopped. So that's a good question. All right.
Can I add one?
Yeah, go for
Yeah, I
it.
want to add one. A big mistake I've made previously is assuming that everybody else within the organisation is as engaged and jazzed for B2B marketing and technology.
That is very true.
Yeah.
Normally in a B2B organisation, you're the only one who speaks marketing. So you say NPS and you say all these things and they just stare at you blankly. But if you say EBITDA, they're all good.
Completely. And that's what you learn about that engagement process, that there is that thing at the end of the tunnel that they're interested in versus you thinking that I can implement this cool thing, we're going to absolutely kick ass. Yeah.
It's very interesting. And B2B businesses are traditionally more used to sales talk rather than marketing talk.
Bottom line.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Any cool companies on your radar that are doing really awesome work in B2B space?
I really liked WePower's launch. Yes, when they did the launch, it was very cool. And I told my team they need to go watch it and do better.
That was some good feedback.
So, yeah, WePower basically did a really good job of immersing themselves within the energy sector and making themselves really very, very well known.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think, just going back to the video piece, there was a lot of good, rich media created. There was a pretty good strategy around kind of audience engagement around thought leadership and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of conversation around who the thought leaders were in the industry and who we should be reaching out to create relationships with. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
James, anything?
Yeah, I always come back to an experience I had when I was prospecting for automation tools and so on, and it was with Marketo, who have more resources than anyone ever.
Now they're going to have more with Adobe's.
Brought out by Adobe, but the experience was just so clean. It was, I turned up to the website through whatever search I did and clicked on a few bits of content and I could feel myself being funneled in a particular direction and
You're in the clouds, though.
Salivating to provide my details because the content was so on point, so easy to get to, and so relevant to me. Details go in. I'm like, that was cool. I can't wait to see what EDN they come back with. 10 minutes later, I'm on the train to somewhere, and I get a call from Marketo, and they call and they talk, and the things they said to me were amazing. They knew my industry. They knew how to achieve success for other similar businesses within my industry. They understood my situation in the background and kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, and dangled in front of me a next step that wasn't too committed, but it was also quite personal and cool. It was one of their events down here, and immediately I was really invested in the idea, even though I was like, this is going to happen way down the track. But if I do go forward, Marketo is at the top of my list currently. Yeah.
Gotcha.
The other thing that's cool about that is it's like, walking the walk. That's what they do, right? They've shown it to you intrinsically by demonstrating the service from end to end to the person who eventually wants to be able to replicate the same thing.
LinkedIn do the same thing. So we went through the sales process for Sales Navigator, it was called. And yeah, same thing. I felt like I was getting corralled the whole way through. And it was great because they were like, oh, I'm stealing that idea and going to tell my salespeople about that and go the whole way through. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. All right, we're almost out of time, but let's take maybe one or two more questions. How do you get in front of the right people at the right time?
I don't think we'd be sitting here if we knew the answer. I think that what you were just talking about, your Marketo experience is the perfect
Yep.
Yeah.
And that all stemmed from, I had a particular desire. I was looking for something, and the content was available to me as I needed it, as I wanted it, without me even having to think about it.
Yeah, and I think you were talking about at the start about intent-based marketing, and I think for that sort of stuff, understanding intent and kind of speaking to intent, not in such a way that it becomes very salesy, but sort of starting to get people down the funnel and starting to get a bit more of an understanding of what they're doing. That's kind of the really nice kind of intent-based marketing. I think Marketo are really good at it. I think Salesforce are really good at it too. That sort of stuff. And intent-based marketing it's very early for that now, and a lot of people do it in a really poor way. But I think where it's done well, you actually see it's that sort of seamless kind of, you're sort of halfway down a funnel before you realise that they've got you there. Yeah.
That's so true. And I mean, with intent-based marketing, the database probably is not as rich here in Australia, but companies like Bombora in the US, where they analyze all the data that is on the web, and what they do is you basically sit behind Bombora and type in IT infrastructure, and it tells you all the companies right now in the market that are looking for IT infrastructure. That's a really cool way that they're doing intent-based marketing. I mean, they've kind of coined the term intent-based marketing, but I guess manually there was a lot of times that, or even now it happens when you don't have that database, where people go through the news feeds of social media and see what these guys are talking about, and how does our product come in into what they're offering. But yeah.
I think that's where the benefits of channels come in. So we haven't spoken about channel, but identifying and leveraging really good productive channels to market. And in B2B, sometimes that's an advisor network, those kinds of things can help you do that almost content-based marketing, but someone else is doing it for you and getting paid for it. And then they just bring the customer to you because they know your product is better.
Gotcha. We've got an AI question with 8 likes. So AI and machine learning have been a hot topic. Have your organization implemented any AI machine learning models? What's your opinion on how they can help B2B marketing? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it very much depends on your product. I think machine learning is best used in a lot of cases to manage relevance in personalization and that sort of thing, if you can do it. I haven't done it, but I've seen a lot of people do a really good job of that kind of machine learning in personalization. I think we've talked about chatbots. I don't know about whether they were a kind of mistake for everyone or not. I think, again, it sort of depends very much on your product and what people need as far as whether those kind of technologies are going to be useful to you. I think in a lot of cases, AI is a very umbrella and not very useful term. Because of the fact that it doesn't really mean much. I think where you're talking about particular applications like chatbots, like machine learning and that sort of thing, it becomes a bit more interesting. But I don't think that's where you should be focusing your attention at the moment in a lot of cases.
Yeah. I think, let somebody else do that for you and get it to a point of sophistication where it's plug and play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which, there are a lot of Zendesk, for example, their customer relationship, customer management, service management does that for you, and that's implemented in there. And cool. Okay.
We've been thinking about, and I don't know how to do this, but using it to help our sales team manage their funnels. So integrating things like basic lead score data or any data you've got to help your sales and account managers know when customers are ready to engage. And the same, the other side is to manage retention as well. So use any form of data you've got to go through and manage that actual customer relationship there.
All right. I'm going to take one more question from here and then 2 more from the audience, just in case someone wants to sneak in a question. So the last one is, and it was about lead scoring. Yes. So what's the panel's opinion? What is the panel? Oh, which one did we ask? No, we went with the other one. What's the panel's opinion on the relevancy of lead scoring in B2B? What do you think about lead scoring? Is that something you've used?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah, I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
It's how you use it. it helps convince salespeople that your leads are qualified.
Yeah.
And it motivates them, it provides more information for them, and it can define a persona.
Yeah. I mean, it's efficiency from my perspective. It's like if you can come up with a good lead scoring system that makes the whole marketing sales process more efficient, then yeah, great.
Have you had a challenge implementing lead scoring? What has that been like?
Of course. It's a discipline. There's a discipline around it.
Yeah.
And there's getting the right tags firing. And then there's identifying what's a meaningful thing to score someone against. You know, it's all those various things. It's, again, you know, you have a hypothesis on what's a valuable lead. That, you know, how do you test it? You have those right things in place. You know, garbage data in, garbage data out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Let's take 2 questions from the audience. Do we have any questions? Go for it.
So what you will do when you come at the crossroads where data is saying one thing, but your earlier practice and method, they are saying another.
Strategy and customer value proposition wins every day. Your data is only it's just like an element, but your data could be wrong. Wherever you've taken your data from, the sample set, whatever, that can be wrong. But if you know your CVP and your strategy, that's where you need to stick to.
You're sort of saying back yourself a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Last question. Should we look back at the... all right, we'll take one from here. How have you navigated organization silos to deliver on your B2B customer experience?
Qualitative data.
Qualitative data.
Customer quotes. They're really useful. They're really, really tangible. MDs, board members love like real quotes, especially if there's really honest statements in there, whether good or bad. They can really support any arguments that you're trying to make or discussions.
Yeah. I mean, I'll talk to this a little bit because we did this at Lonely Planet. So Lonely Planet obviously is B2C business, very heavily focused B2C business. And we built the partnerships business, the B2B side of Lonely Planet. And what that was basically taking all of the content services and data that Lonely Planet created and selling it to other people and creating products around it for other people. So we were working with Travelocity and Sony and Nokia and Apple and a whole lot of other people like that. But the story from that internally in the organisation, I think for about, I was there for about 5 years. In the first 3 years, we were the devil and deeply hated by everyone in the organisation because of the fact that we were like taking their kind of special content and doing nasty things with it by selling it to other people because they were so heavily B2C. But we were able to kind of build on that story. We did it by EBITDA, we did it by customer stories, we did it by user stories where people were providing data back to whoever, STA Travel or whoever, they were telling them that the Lonely Planet data had been really good. And we built that story over time to the point where people were like, oh, this side of the business is actually really useful. You know, we're getting good money out of it, we're getting good stories out of it, we've got happy clients, all that sort of stuff. I think that the internal story is really important. The way that you tell people the value that you're creating, that can help massively. And the customer stories piece of it's huge in that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think adding to that, as marketers, fundamentally, we are fighting against the history of a question against our credibility.
Yeah.
In terms of how we contribute to the P&L of the business. Previously, you know, marketers are great at making up statistics and to suit their own purposes. I was looking at buying some outdoor advertising for one of the businesses the other day, and the initial stat that was put in front of me was that what I was doing was going to create 17% more inspiration. And I didn't know what that meant. And immediately, you immediately close it. I think in terms of beating that credibility and proving yourself, you always find that, I've always found, especially in the largest of organisations, so I worked with Bunnings in their commercial division for some time, and at the MD level and the GM level, there's support for it because they understand the vision. Underneath that, you come across a lot of managers, mid-managers and upper mid-managers who see what you're doing as a disruption of their happy life and a creation of difficulties and extra work and extra governance and extra budget and all these other things. And like, I just don't want to have to deal with it. So I think making that part of things as easy as possible and getting some basic runs on the board first up with some of the really fundamental low-hanging fruit things, like take a database of clients and of customers and segment it into the very basic personas and put different messages in front of those different recipients and see what happens to your ROI. Start there. And they see the bottom line, they see you doing it and getting the runs on the board, and pretty soon you can start looking at the bigger stuff, like the bigger B2B programmatic things.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Well, thank you very much. On that note, we'll wrap it up. But before we head out, I want to first of all thank the speakers. Thank you very much. No, absolutely my pleasure. And thank you so much. And what I also want to mention is feel free to join our Slack channel. So that's growthcolony.org/Slack. And what we do on our Slack channel is you get the recording of this event. So if you want to go back and listen to it and look at it, make sure you can comfortably do it. And we also do a lot of the announcements for our future events that are coming up. The next month's event is around account-based marketing. And what is account-based marketing? Kind of 101. So if that's something that you're interested in as well, drop by and we'll be happy to see you. Now we're going to be around for a bit. So if you want, hang around, have a chat, and have a drink, and we'll see you around. Thanks so much for coming. Thank you very much. That was awesome.